So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the first keynote, which is Richard from Deloitte. Everyone is familiar with Deloitte. It's the largest of the four big. He's a specialist within this very area of data analytics. And I'd like to welcome you up on stage.
Okay. Just before I get into the keynote, I thought I'd introduce by giving us a bit of history. This street that we're on used to be called Broad Street. And it was actually, as you will well know, the first place that big data and data analytics occurred back in 1854. And in 1854, a guy called Dr. John Snow actually discovered the real reason why cholera was transmitted. And it was in Broad Street, which was, well, Broadwick, which is now Broad Street. And what he discovered is actually he used data from a couple of sources. He used data from the actual declared incidents or deaths of cholera in the area. There were 12 in this building, by the way. And he also collected from his own investigation and was able to isolate for the first time that there was a pump in Broad Street that was responsible for the transmission of cholera. And it was the first time, actually, that anybody had discovered that cholera was not transmitted airborne, but it was actually transmitted through diseased water. So what do I want to talk about other than cholera in this exciting topic? So I think there is far too much hype around big data. I think there is lots of discussion around big data, and there is not enough practical commercial debate. And I think we should be getting into the practical commercial debate. I think through the keynotes, through our discussion and debate and drinks afterwards, we should be looking to stimulate a completely different type of debate around big data. I think we should be the start of changing the way that people talk about big data and creating an alternative type of conversation. So I want to do that by asking us three questions. One is, what is really important to you? What is really important to you, your business? That's the first question. And you should be thinking about that now. Because if you're not starting the big data debate with what is the most important question you want to answer, the rest of it is inaccessible. Secondly, we should be looking at how do we use big data to find smarter solutions, to get ahead, to be more competitive. And finally, I want to cover why is it so important. So if we move on to focusing on what is really important. The typical liturgy around big data starts like this. Humans created, in 2011 alone, 1.8 zettabytes, we'll be doing a test later on the zetta, the peta, and everything else, of data. Now that is equivalent to a line of books stretching from Earth to Pluto and back again 10 times. That's nearly 5,000 trillion books. And then the subject goes on. Utterly useless information, ironically for big data. It is of no help to your business unless your business happens to be focused on some strange space exploration of how you're going to line up 5,000 trillion books between here and Pluto. Absolutely useless. And yet that is where most of the big data debate is focused, on volume, on velocity, on variety of data. All in our very technical and geeky moments we can get very excited about, absolutely useless to you being successful in business or us being successful in society. Where we should be focusing on is what is the most painful, the most critical, the most absolutely commercially important question that you want to ask yourself. How do I track a set of customers? How do I avoid competing on price? How do I really innovate ahead of my competition? How do I enter a new marketplace? How do I find the right school to send my kids to? How do I truly achieve energy efficiency? How do I really improve the deficit? Whatever your most important question is, that is what you should be holding in your mind as we go through the big data debate. And if you first haven't articulated that big data question, you aren't focusing on what's important, and all of the data that's out there, it doesn't matter how big or how important, it is of absolutely no use to you whatsoever. So having asked yourself the most important question, and for you that's going to be very personal, very different, very specific to your business, you now need to go about answering it. And this is where big data comes into its own, if we get it right. But the things I would say is there are a few things that are essential if you're going to use the broad amount of information that's out there. The first is be targeted. I don't care what anyone else has said about anything else. The first thing you need to be doing is be lean and be targeted. Be targeted in what you're analysing and undertake to interpret, understand and predict behaviours. Big data is best when you've asked a very clear question, you've got very targeted analysis, and you're seeking to predict and anticipate behaviours. That is where big data is at its best. Once you've gained success in achieving answering a question through these methods, you can build on it and grow. You need to explore the full range of data sources available to you, decide which are going to be best, and use those to then undertake your analysis. I think visualization is absolutely critical to big data as well, being able to show how this analysis can really bring to life. Follow the results you get out of your big data exploration, move on to the next targeted area, and then finally make this something that is the way you're going to run your business. So those sound like very interesting concepts. So let me bring them to life with a few examples for you that I think really encapsulate successfully using what we call big data. In a very recent hurricane, as it was bearing down on the US, one retailer sought to predict real-time the path of the hurricane and the impact it was likely to have on logistics, response, recovery, and clearly the business in all of their shops. Now, this was a very clear question, a very critical problem, very well articulated. They combined information about curfews and road closures that they gained from active social chatter and social media. They combined that with storm maps from the National Weather Service and GPS data from their own trucks and their own services to prepare for the storm's impact. It was a huge success. It was such a success for them, and they were able to help some of the recovery services beyond their own business, that many large retail organisations now use that standard approach as a way to manage operations and logistics. In sport, the UK is the leading user of big data, using it skillfully to enhance the chance of success. In motorsport, football, athletics, cricket and cycling specifically, we have become the leading country in how to use data to gain minuscule changes in performance and make a huge difference. So minuscule changes that make a huge difference to the success of our athletes. The data, the predictive models and the techniques are at the heart of the decision-making in sport. Our success in many of these sports also being exported as expertise in new businesses. And whilst now this is commonplace and very focused on the improvement of sport, it all began initially with somebody asking a question, which was, how do I manage the wear on tyres in a racing context? A company looking to develop a new shopping centre wanted to understand, where best do I locate this shopping centre? In addition to some standard planning techniques, they combined extensive location, geospatial data, open social media chatter, and also anonymised mobile phone traffic information to predict the footfall of people across the city they were looking at, down to the level of street. They used this not only to position where they were going to locate the shopping centre, but also to create a whole new programme for them and their tenants of where they should be positioned advertising and promotions to attract people to it. And a number of consumer goods businesses are looking at how do they better predict the likely success of their products, everything from shampoo to movies. They're combining social media to fundamentally, with their own data, to fundamentally change the way they predict. And whilst to some of you, the use of social media may sound straightforward, very few businesses have really captured and harnessed, and we'll probably hear some about it tonight, really captured and harnessed the predictive power of social media. And those that are harnessing that predictive power are likely to gain competitively. One of the things that these examples actually bring to life that is critical to big data is all of them have been using the growing source of open data, data that is free to all of us. And governments are very keen to make it available. The UK government is at the forefront of making this information available. And through one way or another has actually released 40,000 data sets already and growing into our lives. And on one particular website, data.gov.uk, they have 9,000 data sets covering demographic, location, travel, environmental, spending, economic and social information, in energy consumption. Now, the potential for the use of this open data is enormous. But businesses, private sector businesses, businesses like yours, are also releasing open data. And the potential for this to create new businesses, new business models, think Parkopedia, is immense. And therefore, if your business is not already utilizing and benefiting from the use of this open data, you're probably already behind your industry. So having asked the right question and having really thought about how you pull the right resources together to utilize and answer that question, why is this so important? The first reason I think this is so important, and why I'm really keen to be part of this discussion, is that I think the future of success in economic growth and innovation is going to be fueled by a good understanding of big data, how to ask the questions, and a smarter way to actually solve the problems. Economic growth is going to be increasingly dependent on us getting big data right. If we don't, big data will have promised much and delivered absolutely little. Secondly, with all this data and all this predictive power that you and other businesses, I'm sure, are enjoying already, comes an enormous responsibility and a whole set of big data moral hazards. This is not just something to bear in mind in terms of privacy or confidentiality, but it is also something that is going to be about embracing a level of responsibility in order to compete better. Those businesses that are able to use big data responsibly are going to attract better customers and be more profitable. The downsides are huge as well. There's a heavily publicized story about a retailer that analyzed a large cohort of customer purchase information, patterns for products such as vitamins, vitamin supplements, lotions, soaps, and cotton wool. And they used this data to build a phenomenally accurate predictive model, which they then used to assign shoppers a pregnancy prediction score. It was incredibly accurate, and they could even predict the due date. The retailer sent information to customers offering them maternity wear and other maternity-related products. Now, whilst it was a tremendously accurate use of big data and its predictive power, it caused immense anxiety amongst its customers. It predicted situations that children didn't want parents to know about, and fundamentally, notwithstanding the level of humour one might apply to that story, caused some serious customer anxiety and a total loss of faith in the business. Your customers and your customers' customers will increasingly look at the success of big data on whether we take this responsibility seriously. In a recent survey around data attitudes, 82% of people said that they are aware that data is collected and used by multiple organizations on them. But people said they were more likely to break off a relationship with an organization because they had lost their data than for any other reason, including they had a bad product. People are 4 times more likely to oppose data's use because they don't know what it's being used for than because they are worried about organizations losing it. And a number of leading organizations are actually choosing to change their entire interaction online with their customers to give customers more choice around how their data is used as a virtue. So in bringing this to a conclusion in my short keynote, I think there are some things I would like to change the debate around with big data and move away from the big and the data and the technology and start getting into some practical reality. Ask the most important questions. Get smarter at answering them by utilizing the resources available to you and the examples I've given you. Think small and targeted. Be a leader in responsibility and change the debate. I think the most important thing we could walk away from is that we can change the debate on big data to be around practical commercial realities, and we could start making those changes today. Thank you.